Hi folks, welcome to RJA Impact. Today we're going to be talking about week 10 in the Holmes Theranos trial. You can search this channel for previous week's updates and also for a more detailed video on the background to Theranos and Holmes' journey to the point at which this trial commenced. Please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel, and also hit the notification button so that you don't miss out on any future videos. As a reminder, Elizabeth Holmes is in court accused of multiple instances of fraud against doctors, patients and investors in connection with her role as CEO of Theranos, and this is week 10 of that trial.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Now, before we talk about this week's testimony and goings on in court, we'll take a little diversion with the background section. Background bonus. Elizabeth Holmes kept a diary. Now, this wasn't a diary in the way we normally think of one, dear diary, and today I did this, today I did that, etc. It was more of a journal, and the format was a bit unusual. It was a stream of consciousness with notes written by Holmes to herself. Yes, by Holmes to herself. There were about a dozen pages in total, and these were typewritten mainly in 2015, and some of the notes do give an insight into the mind of Holmes at that time. Let's go through some of them. We have Becoming Steve Jobs, written on April the 2nd, 2015, and it is no secret that she was being compared to Jobs by magazines and publications, as well as emulating his look with those black turtleneck tops, and other comparisons, both by herself and others, are manifold. Now, in October 2015, the first of the Wall Street Journal articles came out revealing issues with the Theranos technology, and 2 weeks after this, Holmes wrote point-by-point refutation statements and fearless, transparent, nothing to hide. Later on the same day, she wrote board statement, independent look at accusations by board, making statements, no independent opinion, unwise board, enter without judgment. Now, this is a bit cryptic, and I've looked somewhat hard at these statements and can come up with the idea that one of the things she was planning to say was that the board itself was undertaking an independent review. But you can read into these statements so many things. You decide for yourself what you think this particular statement means. Also, strategic mistake, Wall Street Journal, impression, fight, number accusations, made. And to me, after seeing this, I think all of the previous comments are showing a state of mind that is one of fight back, and the lines are rehearsals of the kind of things she was saying or planning to say. And we have another few lines which also definitively address the Wall Street Journal articles. Weak accusations, endorses everything, happened, if, true, raised doubt, want, board looks into it, finds nothing to any of it, looked into it, have not looked at it independently. And in the same note she added, haven't addressed, doesn't shake my confidence, my business judgment, no reason. This announcement, know a month from now, business judgment correct at the time, never for sure. Put out statement, faith, Elizabeth, company. I think again that these comments from Elizabeth to herself are again showing the fight back sort of mentality we had earlier. From earlier in the year again, also from April 2015, we had one line that says, advice all day, EAH call, talk George off cliff. Now, my guess here is that George was George Shultz, grandfather of Tyler Shultz, who was one of the first whistleblowers. Again, it's fairly cryptic. Could Shultz have been planning to leave or disclose some sensitive matters? Your guess is as good as mine. In a note that is apparently preparing for a presentation, we had legislative success in Arizona, started, vision, change world, access to healthcare, bring down cost, up efficiency, min pain. However, there were some apparent notes on what she would answer if provided with a difficult question. Fudge it, if don't understand, want clarified, stop, explore, reserve done, may get to it. Okay, the final note I wanted to talk about was one that said this. Really smart people picked off Mado, not you. Now, this is referenced in the journalist John Carreyrou's book Bad Blood, where he says it was referring to Bernie Madoff. Does this mean that Holmes thought that she had realised the enormity of this fraud and that she wasn't going to be caught out like Madoff was? Again, you decide. So what do we learn and take away from all of this? Well, personally I think three things. Firstly, we have someone who's clearly a fighter and in control of what she's going to say, and also put significant thought into it. Secondly, we have hints that Holmes did know that the business was, in colloquial terms, a pack of cards. And thirdly, putting the first and second points together, there is no evidence of coercion or bullying, etc. by Balwani. This is solely and irrefutably all Holmes. And so to the trial. We heard at the start of the week acrimony between the prosecution and defence about whether the testimony of Brent Bingham, or BB as he was referred to, should be heard, and this was away from the jurors. The defence say that Mr BB should not be heard, as his particular blood test is not included in a list of 25 blood tests provided by the prosecution. Now, Mr BB had his blood tested by Theranos, and at one point had had an email from Theranos saying that he may be having an medical emergency. Mr BB was suspicious at the time, as he had some experience of lab testing variances, and eventually he called Theranos to complain about this, but didn't get any resolution. Now, the judge denied his testimony on the basis that the blood test he was having was not included in the 25 blood tests, and the prosecution said that they had made a mistake and accidentally included the wrong test in respect of BB. The government were confused, said Bostic for the prosecution. Now, the defence had a real win here, and with glee said, "It sounds like the government may have been confused about which tests it was charging. That is not our fault. The government shouldn't be forgiven for its failure to understand its own case," Miss Treffs added for the defence. "They should be held to a higher standard than that." Lisa Peterson. We heard from her last week as well, and just as a reminder, Lisa was an employee working for the DeVos family and participated in the review of Theranos before they invested $100 million in the company. The defence had an opportunity to cross-examine her on Tuesday, and it was feisty to say the least. Whatever the defence put to her, she rebuffed. She would speak over Lance Wade for the defence, whatever the content of the question, and he spoke back over her. On many occasions, Lance had to ask the judge to strike her testimony from the record. So what was the fight all about? Well, there was actually a lot. So let's take a couple of exchanges back and forth and you'll see the kind of thing I'm getting at. Wade showed Peterson an extract from the investment agreement between RDV, the DeVos Family Trust, and Theranos, a part of which said that the forecasts might not materialise. Now, Peterson said that if their projections were way off, then RDV should have been informed, and Wade got that exchange struck from the testimony. Peterson then said it was difficult to make decisions as a sophisticated investor when we weren't given complete information, and at this point Judge Davila said, "Just wait for the lawyer's questions." There were other to's and fro's between them, and much of which amounted to whether Theranos had actually told her a direct lie. Nothing conclusive was garnered here, and one example of this was again on the forecast revenues. Theranos had forecast revenues for 2014 just before the year commenced of $140 million, and in actual fact their revenues were about $500,000. Peterson said that Theranos should have known the forecasts were way off and told investors what they were telling us wasn't true, she had said to one of the questions. Another feisty exchange happened when Lance Wade for the defence showed the court a letter sent to RDV and pointed to a paragraph that said that Theranos had paused its work with pharmaceutical companies and the military to focus on building out a nationwide retail laboratory presence. Now, Miss Peterson countered that a couple of paragraphs higher, the letter read that Theranos had important business lines from pharmaceutical companies and the military, and that was very relevant, Peterson said. Judge Davila agreed to strike her comments about the letter from the court record. Distraction. We had one of those little moments of distraction in the court on Tuesday morning when a person near the rear of the court was observed taking pictures with his phone. Now, he was confronted by a court deputy and Davila made him stand in the centre of the court, where he admitted taking a photo and that he had now deleted it. Davila gave him a telling off and said, "If it comes to my attention again, I'll have to take some action." Constant Cullen. Now, Constance was a bioanalytical director at Schering-Plough, and Cullen said that she was tasked with evaluating Theranos technology. Schering-Plough had paid Theranos $279,000 to cover the costs of a validation test of Theranos technology. After they had completed their tests, Cullen had a meeting with Holmes and other subject matters from Theranos to discuss them, which were not good. Cullen said that Holmes almost exclusively answered all questions in the meeting. My recollection is that the answers were not necessarily forthcoming. I was dissatisfied, quite frankly, with the responses. Cullen said that when she asked others in the meeting, Holmes would butt in and answer. There were cagey responses or attempts to redirect to other topics of discussion, she said. Really key here is the next element of the testimony, where we saw an email from Holmes to a Walgreens official, Alex Young, which read, "As per our discussion, please find 3 independent due diligence reports on Theranos systems attached to this email. These reports are from GlaxoSmithKline, Pfizer and Schering-Plough after their own technical validation and experience with Theranos systems in the field. The prosecution then showed an earlier validation report that Theranos did on its own, which Cullen said her company did not support, but Schering-Plough logo is in the corner. Now, does this resonate with you? Similar to the Pfizer document? Yeah, I think so. Anyway, Cullen said she did not approve of the report and she did not agree with Theranos' claims, and said that no one at Schering-Plough did either. There wasn't much for the defence to really say on this. They asked a couple of simple questions, and essentially it boiled down to Cullen never telling anyone at Theranos that there were problems with their validation reports. So this has got to be crucial to the prosecution. We have another report fabricated to look like it was Schering-Plough. Holmes sent it and said it was from them, and we have somebody from Schering-Plough who has said, "No, that is not ours." Daniel Mosley. Daniel Mosley is an estate attorney who has some of the wealthiest people in America as clients. We heard that he'd introduced Holmes to several of his clients, and these became some of the biggest investors in Theranos. He'd invested $6 million himself and said he was delighted and honoured that Holmes had accepted it. Now, between them, his clients invested around $400 million in Theranos just during the 2015 funding round alone, and this was just before the company came under the intense media scrutiny. Let's take a look at some of the ones that we know about. The Walton family, $150 million. The DeVos family, $100 million. The Cox family, these are the media and automotive conglomerate, $100 million. Andreas Dracopoulos, the shipping heir and philanthropist, $25 million. Henry Kissinger, $3 million. And various friends of Henry Kissinger, another $25 million. Mosley said that he had relied on documents, including the Fortune magazine story and the report with the logo of Pfizer on it. Yes, that report does keep cropping up, doesn't it? Because several of the indictment counts relate to individual investors' wire transfers, I suspect that we're going to see quite a few more investors over the course of the rest of the prosecution. Now, there was a discussion about the Stavros Niarchos Foundation's decision not to invest in Theranos. Mosley was with them and he wrote to Dracopoulos about this, saying, "Some of the foundation staff members who were with me were not able to see the true opportunity, and instead were focusing on dotting every I and crossing every T." Now, I don't know about you, but this comment seems critical of those staff, and personally I'd commend them, and they certainly saved their foundation tens of millions of dollars by doing their proper due diligence and proper checking. Dracopoulos, the philanthropist whose foundation it was, remained interested, and he was persuaded by Mosley to make a personal investment of $25 million. Week 10 in a nutshell. As usual, we'll boil down the week to the bare essentials. Lisa Peterson. Lisa, who worked for the DeVos family and managed investments for them, testified that They relied on information sent by Holmes in making the 100 million investment. A key extract from a document that the DeVos family had signed said that forecasts in quotes might not materialise, and she thought that Theranos were wrong in their forecasts and should have told investors. Constance Cullen. Cullen worked for Schering-Plough. They undertook a validation test of Theranos tech and the results were not favourable. Holmes was very evasive in a meeting to discuss those results, and the Theranos validation report turned up rebranded with Schering-Plough's logo on it. And this was not authorised by Schering-Plough. Daniel Mosley. He's an estate attorney for wealthy individuals and acted as a bit of a matchmaker between Theranos and his clients. He introduced a lot of the wealthy investors to Theranos, and he also saw the infamous Pfizer report. And in total, there was about 400 million in one round of investment for Theranos in 2015, raised from his clients. Well, that's it for me for the week. I'll catch up on Friday's testimony in next week's update, as I'll not have time to include it in a pretty timely fashion this week. So that's it. Don't forget these are still prosecution witnesses at the moment. And thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the notification button so that you don't miss out on future videos when they are published.